In-laws refuse to help during a medical emergency. Hey everyone, welcome back to Plot Tales Daily. If you enjoy crazy stories and dramatic tales, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps with the algorithm and helps us grow, so we can keep bringing you more of the content you love. Let's dive into today's story. It all went downhill over the weekend when my 5-year-old woke up gasping for breath. Her lips were turning a shade of blue that no parent should ever have to see. I panicked, rushed her to the ER. My husband was holding our 2-year-old in his arms, trying to keep her calm while I was freaking out in the back seat. When we got there, it was chaos. A blur of doctors, nurses, and the kind of worry that digs into your gut. The nurses struggled for 30 damn minutes to get an IV in my girl's arm. She was screaming, her veins rolling under every attempt. I could see my husband turning white, holding his breath with every needle jab. I said to him, "Call your parents. Tell them to get here now. We need help with the 2-year-old while we're dealing with this." He nodded and stepped outside to make the call. When he came back, his face was blank. "They're not coming," he said flatly. "What do you mean they're not coming?" I shot back louder than I should have in a hospital room. The nurses glanced at us with those "we've seen this before" eyes. "They've got a vacation starting and they don't want to risk getting sick from the 2-year-old, he replied, looking defeated. "You have got to be kidding me," I said, probably loud enough for the entire floor to hear. My kid's in a hospital bed struggling to breathe, and his parents are more concerned about catching a cold on their trip to some cheap hotel by the sea. My blood was boiling. After we got settled in a private room, I pressed my husband for more details. His parents didn't want to cancel their plans to some nearby resort, despite this being the first real emergency we'd ever had. It wasn't like they couldn't afford to lose a few bucks. They'd just gotten a fat inheritance and still chose their much-needed break over their grandkid's life. "Are you serious right now?" I hissed at him once we were alone. "Your mother constantly brags about how much money they have lying around, and they can't ditch a beach trip to help their son and grandchild? What the hell is wrong with them?" He just shook his head, staring at the floor like he couldn't process it either. "I know," he said quietly. "I think this is it for me. I can't even look at them right now." What hit me the hardest was the sudden outpouring of support from everyone else. My sister, who lives 6 hours away, jumped into her car without hesitation, taking family leave to be with us. She slept on our couch, folded laundry, fed the toddler, and even brought gifts for the sick 5-year-old. My mom, who lives on another continent, offered to get on a plane immediately. Even my best friend's mom, who's only met my kids twice, offered to drop everything to be here. And then there was his family. A no-show, not even a text. A week later, my 5-year-old was stable, still exhausted but on the mend. We were back home and I was trying to find some sense of normalcy. Then my husband tells me they're planning to come visit in a few weeks. "You know that trip we set up ages ago?" I looked at him like he'd lost his damn mind. "You think I'm gonna play hostess to those two after this? After they ditched us like we were strangers?" I said, my voice getting shakier with every word. He didn't answer right away. "I don't want to see them either," he finally said, "but they're my parents. We have to tell them how we feel." "Oh, they'll know exactly how I feel when I slam the door in their faces," I spat out. I didn't care anymore. If that's how they treat their favorite son and granddaughter, then to hell with their visit. When the day of their visit finally came, I was ready to unleash years of pent-up frustration. They showed up with forced smiles and some cheap supermarket flowers, like that was going to smooth things over. I couldn't even pretend to be civil. Before they even stepped inside, I blocked the door. "You don't get to waltz in here like nothing happened," I said coldly. My mother-in-law's face twisted in surprise, and she stammered something about being so relieved that the 5-year-old was feeling better. "Relieved," I snapped. "You didn't give a damn when she was hooked up to machines fighting to breathe. You didn't even bother to come. My sister drove 6 hours, my friends and their moms dropped everything, and you went to sip cocktails by the sea." "Well, we didn't want to risk," she started, but I cut her off. "Save it. I don't care about your excuses. You had a choice and you chose yourself," I said, slamming the door shut before she could say another word. My husband looked like he'd been hit by a truck, but he didn't argue with me. He just stood there, staring at the closed door and nodded slowly. "I think I'm done," he said, almost to himself, and that's when it hit me. He'd spent his whole life trying to please these people who wouldn't lift a finger for him when it mattered. He'd bent over backward to be their perfect son, and they couldn't be bothered to do the bare minimum. "You don't owe them anything," I said, reaching for his hand. "If they can't be there for you, then maybe it's time to stop being there for them." He squeezed my hand back and nodded. "Yeah," he said quietly, "maybe it is." Update. So, it's been a few weeks since that whole disaster, and we haven't heard a peep from his parents since they left our doorstep. They didn't even try to apologize or explain themselves further. My husband's been going through some tough stuff, realizing how little they care. He's had a few moments where he almost picked up the phone to call them, but then he'd stop himself, like he's finally seen them for who they are. Our kids keep asking about their grandparents, and we're struggling to figure out what to say. How do you tell a 5-year-old that her favorite grandparents chose a vacation over her when she was sick? How do you explain that sometimes people just suck, even if they're family? Last night, my husband finally sat down with me and said, I think I need to go no contact with them, at least for a while. I need to put us first for once. I didn't say much, just nodded because honestly, what else is there to say? I knew he needed to come to that decision on his own. It's not easy to cut off your own parents no matter how much they hurt you, but seeing him choose us, his family, over them, it was like a weight lifting off our shoulders. Out of the blue, my mother-in-law started texting me again, acting like nothing happened, asking about when they could see the kids next. No apology, no mention of the hospital incident, just straight up denial like we're living in some alternate reality where they didn't abandon us. I didn't reply. I don't know if I ever will. I don't think I have anything left to say to people who can't even be honest about who they are. For now, we're focusing on our little family, the one that shows up, that cares, that knows what it means to be there when it counts. And that's all that matters.